Good evening guys, and welcome to Cooking with Cook. And tonight we're going to be making a fantastic classical Italian stuffed porchetta with a butternut and gorgonzola risotto. So the first stage is obviously we're going to be making our farce or our stuffing and then tying up our pork belly. So if you come down over here, I'll just show you some of the ingredients we've got. So we've got up here, we have our pork belly, which has been obviously from hand cross butchers, which has the bone, the rib bone has been taken out of the belly, and then the fat, some of the meat has been skimmed off, and then it's been minced, which I have on a little plate here. So the meat we're going to incorporate into the stuffing and then put back into the belly, and then the friendly butcher has nicely scored all the skin, the rind for us, so a nice crackle up, etc. So let me just wash my hands. So on that board there, as you'll see, we have 2 bulbs of fennel, we have a little bit of fresh rosemary, some dried apricots, 1 small red onion, a lemon and a couple of garlic cloves. And then over here we've got 3 slices of bread that's been blitzed up to make fresh breadcrumbs, some olive oil, a little bit of salt, some nutmeg, and then importantly obviously we've got a ball of butcher string and a little knife. So the first thing we're going to do, very simply, is we're going to just prepare the fennel. It's going to lose a little bit off the ends, cut down straight down the middle, cut it into quarters, and then just lose that little bit of root out of each end. Do the same. And then lose them little root bits, and then all we do is just going to shred it down nice and fine like so. And then as you slice into it, you can smell that beautiful aniseedy fennel flavour, which is going to help beautifully in our stuffing. Now very classically in porchetta they use fennel seeds, but I've actually gone for the fresh fennel. You smell that? Beautiful. So just do the rest of that, and then repeat the same again. A little bit off the ends, take that little bit of root off, cut into quarters, take the little root out, and then repeat it on the other half. A little bit of the root off. Now take that little bit of root out because it tends to be a little bit tougher, and then again slice it down, shred it nice and slice like so. And then the last bit, let's just move that onion and them little bits there, and the garlic. Move that up the board a little bit. Slice until you have all that lovely fennel shredded down on your board. Next, we're going to just cut a peeled onion, red onion, straight in half. Take the root out, use that, and then just going to slice that down like so. Oh. And repeat. Use that little bit. Oh. And then once we've got our onion and our fennel, we then bash our little garlic cloves like so. Take that little bit of root off, and then we can peel the garlic nice and easy. Take the skin off if it wants to come off. Come on. And then repeat on the other one, and then before we chop that, come over to our little stove. Now we're going to turn the pan on, get it nice and hot on about 12-13 on my induction, and a nice little splash of olive oil, probably a 1 or 2 tablespoons. Let that warm up, and while that's warming up, just shred down the garlic, and I'm just slicing it finely. Not going to be chopping it, just nicely sliced. Put that there, and then I've got some nice little fresh rosemary from the garden. Just pull the rosemary back on itself so you remove it from the stalk, like so. And this just gives it a nice little herby punch, like that. And then again, we're just going to run our knife through just roughly to break that rosemary down and get that lovely flavour out of them little spears. Lovely. And then just take the apricots and the lemon off. Right, take this over to your frying pan, and then in goes the fennel, the garlic, the onions and the rosemary. Make sure you've got it all out to your board. And then if you come around this side, we're just going to sweat that down, get the temperature nice and hot. Can you smell that already? You can smell that lovely anise seed. Beautiful. Turn it right up nice and hot. And let that sweat. Now while that's sweating for a second, we'll come over here. We're going to grab our little dried apricots to give it a nice little bit of a fruit punch in through the stuffing. And literally all I do is run my knife through like that, just sideways on, take 2 or 3 at a time, and as I say, slice them down so you get nice flicks of the apricot through this stuffing as well. And the last couple of bits. And then we can incorporate that, the dried apricots, into the pan, sprinkle them all over. Lovely. Get a nice little turnover. Lovely. Oh, smells good enough to eat. Nice colour as well. You get the nice flicks of the red onion, the green of the fennel, little speckles of rosemary, and that vibrant orangey dried apricots. So while that's carrying on sweating for a little bit, what we do, we're now going to, I'm going to move the board for a second. We're going to take our lemon, and I don't want juice in the actual stuffing, we're just going to go for the zest, for the authentic sort of nice acidic punch sort of thing. So using my microplane, just zest your lemon. Beautiful. Into the things that are sweating down. And when you've gone round most of the lemon, give it a nice little toss. And when that's sweated down nicely like so, and you don't have to cook it for ages, because you've got to remember this is going in the stuffing, it's going to then be cooked in the oven inside the pork belly for hours, so it will break down more. So all I'm going to do, turn that off now. I'm going to take a little pinch of salt, a little bit of nutmeg, which I'll put into the cap first, and a nice little sprinkle, probably about half a teaspoon of the nutmeg, and then we will add the fresh breadcrumbs into the pan. Give that nice little mix around now, and now I'll just mix that all up so it all gets, all them flavours get incorporated with them breadcrumbs. And then before, obviously, I can mix this into that mince, that lovely bit of minced pork which we have here, I've got to let it cool down for about 5 minutes. So what I would suggest is if you come back in about 5 minutes when this is cooled down, we incorporate it and move on to stuffing the porchetta. Okay, so now we've let the stuffing mix cool down in a bowl, and the next thing we're going to do is incorporate the lovely bit of meat that's come out of that belly and been minced down, and using our hands get the lovely mix, all that nice stuffing nicely mixed up through the pork mince to make our lovely stuffing like so. And then we're going to incorporate this back in to our belly, and all I'm going to do is pad it down back on top, which gives it more meatiness. And don't worry if you do overfill it slightly and it starts oozing out a little bit, it's not the end of the world. Pack it down like so. Beautiful. And then once you've got all that on top, we then roll our porchetta. So we just grab it, and like I said, don't worry if some of it comes out, just roll it as tight as you can like so, and then give it a good squeeze down and remove any little excess bits, push a little bit back in, take that little bit, set that aside, and then now we're ready to give our porchetta a tie up. Now you'll see that I've got on the floor down here, I've got a bowl with my butcher string in the bowl, and it's on the floor. Now it's easier that way because what you're going to do is keep it down there, hold your butcher string and go underneath right to the middle. Now also what's worth mentioning, where it's all been scored does help for the string to be cut into. So first thing we do is do a nice bit in the middle. So pull the string so you've got plenty to play with, hold the bottom of the string and put it on both your fingers, and then you twist around. Let's do that again. So hold your finger like so and twist around to make a nice little loop. Put the string through, tie it off, up, down, not too tight, and then tie it off like so. Cut the strings. Now I'll go to one end, go to this end. Again, plenty to play with, and on your fingers twist around through the loop like so, pull, and then tighten it down like that. Tie it off, cut the strings. Go to the other end and do exactly the same. Finger, finger, twist round through the loop with the string, pull, and pull it down to tighten it off like so. Now you can keep going, but at the end of the day that will help it hold its shape. So let's just do 2 more just for more practice. So boom, like so, up, down, tie off, cut, and one here, finger round through the hole, tie, and then tie it off. Now the only other thing I'm going to do is go round the pork belly as well, just to help keep that stuffing in. So if I turn it round like that, doing exactly the same.
Hang on, your arm's in the way, sorry.
Do exactly the same, straight underneath the pork belly, pull it up so you've got plenty, And then if you come down here again, exactly the same process. Make a little loop hole through, tie, and then just up and then pull it down, and it will tighten it, and it'll help keep that stuffing a little bit in as well. Tie it off like that and cut, and there we have our lovely stuffed porchetta. All I'm going to do is put a nice little bit of extra virgin olive oil, rub it into that skin to help the crackling, like that. Wash my hands quickly, and then with any crackling, what it needs is a nice bit of salt, like so. And then all I'm going to do finally is place my porchetta into a nice little dish like so. I'm going to clean it, film it over, and put that in the fridge, and I'm going to leave it overnight, and then I'm going to come back to this and cook this and explain how we're going to cook this and make our lovely butternut squash and gorgonzola risotto. So I'll see you tomorrow, which will only seem like about 3 seconds. Okay guys, welcome back to the next day. New clothes. So right, back to the porchetta. Now obviously it's been stuffed, it's sat overnight. All I'm going to do now is obviously the cooking process. So I'm going to put a little bit more salt on, like so. And then very simply cooking this porchetta, what we need to do is we're going to be putting it in the oven on 180 Celsius. And I'm going to put it in there for about 2 hours. And then for about half an hour after that, turn the heat right up so it crisps up the skin a little bit more, okay? So all I've done in the oven, if you come down here, I've got a rack which I'm going to place the pork on, like so, and then a tray underneath which will collect any juice, any fat that renders down, and it collects it in the bottom, which we can make, we can deglass and use for our stock when we make our risotto. So that's now going to go in, as I say, for a couple of hours. So come back in 2 hours, which I almost feel like just a few seconds. Okay guys, so for the next stage we're going to be making our butternut squash and gorgonzola risotto. So if you come down over here, you'll see the ingredients we need. We've got a couple of chicken stock cubes here. We've got some spring onion ends. We have some pumpkin seeds, a couple of peeled red onions, 2 cloves of garlic, butternut squash, some lovely creamy gorgonzola cheese, some arborio risotto rice, some extra virgin olive oil, a little bit of rosé wine, and some salt. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to prepare the butternut squash. So all I'm going to use is the top part of the butternut squash, because that's the amount we only need. So I've just cut the top of the butternut off and then cut down to where the ball part of the actual butternut is. Now that's where the seeds are, and we're not going to need all of this. So if I cut that off, you'll see that the seeds are obviously start growing in the bottom part. I'm going to set that aside. All we're going to use tonight is the top part. Now you can peel it. Personally, I use my little pastry knife, and I just go down using that, a serrated knife, just to cut the skin off the butternut and go all the way round like so. Try not to waste too much, and then once you've worked your way all around the butternut like so, let's take that little bit off, lose the skin like so, and then what I'm going to do is take a slice off like so, so it stands up, and then slice it in similar thickness, like so. And then running my knife down on the butternut, and then into nice little cubes, like so. Repeat the process into 3, and then into nice little cubes, and then let's do a couple of bits together. So into 3 or 6 even if I'm doing 2 parts, and then dice down like so, and then the last bit into 3, and then dice down. Now you can roast this on a tray with a little bit of olive oil, a bit of garlic, etc. All I'm going to do, so I can see it all the time and keep an eye on it, is put a nice little bit of olive oil in the frying pan, get it nice and hot, and then place this butternut into the pan, like so, on a high heat, so that it roasts in the pan, colours up, and we'll just keep a little eye on that and leave that doing what you need it to do. In the next pan, we're going to splash another nice glug of oil. Now, you want a good colour.
Yep.
And now, onions are in this pan, sweating down, and we've got the butternut squash colouring up nicely, cooking down in this pan. So while them onions are softening up, come back over to the board, and then we can just chop our 2 nice cloves of garlic, slice them down, and then run your knife through, like so. And then once they're chopped down into nice little nibs like that, gather it up onto your knife, and then that can be placed in with the onions, and then move your onions around and your garlic and that nice bit of oil in that pan, and soften that up. Give your butternut squash a nice little toss again. You can start seeing that it's colouring up nicely. Move them around so they're continually colouring. And then back into the pan here where your onions and garlic, now not too long because you don't want your garlic to start burning. And now I'm going to add in my arborio rice. Gradually add it in, move it around, like so. Make sure that the arborio rice gets nicely coated with that oil, the onions and the garlic. As I say, keep moving it around. Now the arborio rice, they're like little sponges, these rice. They absorb all the flavour, so they've got that lovely onion and garlicky oil, all coated, and they'll start absorbing into the rice. So, nice little shake, and when you think that that is nicely all coated in that oil, we can then start slowly adding our little rosé wine in first. Now the rosé wine, why do we use wine? It gives it a nice little punch, gives it a little acidity, a little sharpness. So if I gradually add that in, all over, like so. Nice little shake.
Steve, is there anything you can use instead of wine?
Why would you not want to use wine?
I know, but some people don't.
Little vinegar?
Yeah.
Little touch of vinegar, little bit of lemon juice. As long as you're getting that acidic little sharpness, yeah, you can replace that instead of the wine.
Okay.
So now just let that absorb into there. Take the little butternut, turn the butternut down just slightly, and now at this point we are going to take our 2 little veg, our Knorr chicken stock cubes. I'm going to drop them straight in. Now you can obviously dilute this with hot water, make a stock of them slowly. However, it's all going the same way. So I just mix it in like so. And then a kettle of boiling hot water, which will make the stock. And the important thing is, when making risotto, is that you gradually add the liquid into the pan. Don't make it swim, it's got to slowly absorb. So if I take the kettle, pour a nice little bit in, like so. You don't want it sticking to the bottom of the pan. So it's very important that you keep stirring. And then the arborio rice as well, which is quite important, is it throws off a starch and it thickens and creates that sort of lovely, thick, almost creamy risotto-y sauce around them, or around the rice. So as you can see now, look, if you look in the bottom of the pan, it's just, there's not too much liquid in there. So now I will add another little bit in, like so, not too much, just gradually, little shake, move it around. Look at that lovely colour that the red onions brings as well to that risotto, especially when we eventually add in our lovely butternut squash as well. So give that another little stir. And then what I'm going to do, very simply, I'm going to gradually keep adding the boiling hot water in stages so it absorbs. And then in about 10 minutes time, as I keep doing this, I'm going to taste the risotto, which we'll come back to, and then we can then move on to the next stage. So come back in about 10 minutes. Okay, so now we're back. If we come back over to the pan here, where we look at the risotto, now this is at about 10 minutes on a sort of highish to 3/4 heat, and I keep absorbing and keep putting in the water, and you'll see that it's fluffed up. And the way to tell is you just take just a couple of the grains, pop them in your mouth. It should have a sort of little bite to it, and as the Italians say, al dente. So a nice little crisp bite, which that now has. Now if you look in the pan, you can see not much liquid. All the starch is around that risotto. That's exactly how you want it. Back over to the butternut, and that's just been lovely pan frying in that pan. Nice bit of colour. You get the same thing as you would do if you roasted it in the oven, but we've just kept a nice eye on it. So all I'm going to do now is incorporate the butternut squash into the risotto. And if we come over to the board, and then the final few things we're going to do is we're going to take our spring onion ends, or you can use chives, but I just like the spring onions, a little bit stronger in flavour and a little more predominant, and give them a nice little slice. And it gives it a nice little onion, and it gives it a nice colour as well, not forgetting. And then this straight into the pan with the butternut, like so. And then, sorry, back to the board, and then we're going to take our gorgonzola and just take the rind off it, just remove the outside, don't waste too much, like so, and then just cut it through. Nice creamy gorgonzola cheese, little dice like so, and then that then gets put into the pan with the butternut squash, the spring onions, and then all we do, a nice little pinch of salt, not too much, Gorgonzola's quite salty, and I'm going to put a little pinch of milled pepper in there too, and then a nice little handful of pumpkin seeds just to finish it off, and then turn that nicely all over so that that cheese starts melting. So now if it starts really clamming together, then just incorporate a little touch of water to help it down. But that for me is a nice consistency. Move it all around so that cheese does melt. Oh God, can you smell it? And obviously I've made quite a bit here. If you stick to the recipe, it will make a good 4 portions. I have made a little bit extra. As you can see, I didn't really weigh things, as we have an extra guest tonight for dinner. So once you're up to that stage, turn it off, grab your little spoon, make sure you get a little bit of butternut, a bit of the onion, a bit of pumpkin seed, hopefully a bit of that gorgonzola. Beautiful. That gorgonzola, really pungent, and that lovely butternut squash, crunchy pumpkin seeds, the al denteness of the risotto. It's creamy without adding cream, not knobs of butter. You don't need it. We're trying to be healthy. Absolutely stunning. And there's a nice little sharpness kick from the alcohol, from the rosé wine. Little sharpness. Absolutely stunning. So all we do now is I'm going to turn my board over to the clean side, and we come down to the oven where our porchetta has been cooking, and I will now remove this onto my board. Let's put that back in there for a second, and if you come over here, Mary, and all I'm going to do, remove the string. Don't worry about the darkening up of that stuffing on the outside there, just remove that. Remove that string. Ooh. We've got a nice crisp crackling from our porchetta. As I say, just remove that outside bit. Oh God, it smells absolutely stunning. And if I cut, I'm going to cut it in half first. Normally what I would do is let it rest a little bit as well, but don't have that luxury at the moment, so I just want to speed this up so you can all see. But let's cut it in half, and I'm using my serrated edge knife again, my little pastry knife. But if I cut straight down the middle, hopefully you'll get the effect of what we're after. And there, ladies and gentlemen, we have our beautiful crisp crackling, our beautiful belly meat, and that absolutely stunning farce that we made. So all I'm going to do, let's just take one piece. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our beautiful crisp crackling, our beautiful belly meat, and that absolutely stunning farce that we made. So all I'm going to do, let's just take one piece and have a nice slice of it. Let it cool down, like I said, otherwise it's incredibly hot. Let's just place that down. Look at that, absolutely beautiful. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my risotto into the bowl, like so. Lovely. Just give that a little wipe. Try not to make a mess like I do. And then on goes our porchetta on top. And then all I finish with just a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, just to give it a nice little glaze. And I will not do anything other than dig into that. Ladies and gentlemen, there we have our beautiful stuffed porchetta with our butternut and gorgonzola risotto. Hope you enjoyed this recipe. Get get creative, get cooking. Look forward to seeing your photos, hopefully.